Jay Hughes, my old friend. Alan, Ken, hey Ken. Got a good plan tonight. Jimmy, Larry, see some names on there, some folks I know. Jim, hi Jim. I appreciate y'all coming in to watch. David, Scott, I got some stuff David would even like in here. If you guys race cars or build engines for cars or hot rod Harleys or Suzuki's, Kawasaki's 4-cylinders, 1-cylinders, this engine stuff right here. I'm going to talk about some controversial engine, I don't know what to call it. I guess it would be opinions and combinations and how we come up with the order of importance. And one thing I wanted to say first thing today to y'all is so many folks are saying, you know, George is giving away the farm, George is telling all the secrets. No, I'm not. I'm sharing information. Some of it's on the internet, some of it's not. Hey Chris, Tom, some guys I haven't seen in a long time, Chad, Caesar, Harry. I just want to share some stuff that I've learned over 40 years of building engines as a day job, not just my hobby, but as a day job. Like when I go in every day and clock in, I go work on how to make engines run better, and I go work on how to make more horsepower, and that has been a clock in, clock out deal. Well, we really don't clock out that much. I think about it 24/7. I take a minute off every now and then to do something fun, but most of the time it's about racing. Hi Jackie, hey Matt, Troy, Tony. I wanted to share with you guys that Roy and Candy, how y'all and the kids, say hi to the kids too, Trace. I just wanted to tell you guys that these are opinions based on experience. They're not the only way to do it. They're our way. We do it with what we've learned over the years. This is not a competition with my competitors. This is not a competition with you engine builder guys. This is just stuff that I think is right. And I'm going to tell you what I think I know. And I do know after all these years that I think that I know enough that I don't know enough. So I'm going to keep trying to learn more. Hey, John and Bob and Mary Alice, my cheerleader from high school. Hello. McClinigan High School. I remember them days. That was a long time ago. My goodness. How long ago was that? We were kids, man. We're old now. I'm sorry, Mary Alice. You might not be as old as me, but I'm old. Anyway, I got some cool stuff that we've learned all over the years that I would love to share with you guys. The engine deal is what I meant by clocking in is everybody does, all you guys, gearheads and a lot of my fans and friends and competitors and just people that are on here with me, they are into this. I mean, we call them gearheads. We want to learn more about engines and what makes them work and what makes more power and how do we make them last longer and go faster and have more fun, because I'm into the smiles per gallon. How many smiles do I get out of a gallon? If my motorcycle or my car or my truck is not fun, something's got to be good about it, or I'm just interested in something else. I am that guy. People don't care what car they drive, what truck they drive. They don't care about their motorcycles. I'm sorry, that's not me. I am the guy that wants my motorcycle and my truck and my car to be fun when I drive it. I mean, smiles per gallon, not miles per gallon, smiles. So anyway, I learned a lot about engines and how to make more power over the years because of that. And a lot has changed, and I want y'all to know this is not all me, not all what the good Lord put in my head. I have my speed dial has a lot of really good numbers and really good contacts. The specialists in the rings and the pistons and the valves and the camshafts. I have specialists that are friends of mine. It's not just me. But one thing, hey Tracy, Stephen, one thing that I'm very thankful for is a combination of being really hungry for this information and knowing how to talk to people in a way that they don't mind sharing with me. So that's one thing I've learned that I want to do for you is I want to share some info with you. So I'm going to break this down and tell you that engine design. Now one thing that's been great for having this company here for 40 years is a company or a person or an individual or a team would hire us as a company to design an engine combination for them. 1-cylinder, 2-cylinder, 3-cylinder, 4-cylinder, 5, 10, 8, 12, We've been involved in lots and lots of engines over the years. So the limitation that we found, and I'm going to break it down pretty easy in my book, the bore size. The bore size. The bore size sets the pace for the engine, not the stroke. The bore is our limit. If we can, and we do whatever we can to get the biggest bore that can get in there. I think that the gaskets, you have to call the gasket guy first and see, do they make one? Can they make one? And what do I have to supply for you to make me a gasket to fit that? The second thing, maybe this tied for first, is the ring guy. The company that makes these rings. Yeah, they're almost invisible. If you can't get rings for it, it would save you money and time to move one size down, one size up in order to get rings. Notice the rings come before the pistons. Once you get the bore size squared away, and you've come up with the sleeve that will handle it, the cylinder bore, the thickness of the cylinders, that's very important. You don't go for the biggest bore that you can get in order to get the biggest bore you can get. You do it big, the biggest that you can run successfully is limited by the packaging of the engine, okay? There's a lot of reasons. Head bolt pattern, how many studs or how many head bolts will clamp the head gasket together, and then you figure out what's the most bore. I made a couple notes so I wouldn't fly the plane around the airport too much without landing it, but once we get the bore figured out, then we figure out the stroke. And the stroke, we set the stroke, how much stroke the engine has, based on the rules. So if we have a 500 cubic inches, we're going to put the biggest bore that will fit in the V8 or whatever side, what it is. We'll put the biggest bore that will fit based on the cylinder walls and what ring package we can buy. Now, right now in 500 cubic inch Pro Stock style V8s, almost every ring in the world is available because somebody's already tried it. So there's rings available for every bore size. 4.7, 10, 4.72, 4.73, 4.7, more than that. But when the NHRA set the rules at 4.9 inches center to center between the pistons, then that means that the bore can only be yay big. So once you get that figured out, then you know that you've got to just do some backwards math on your handy dandy calculator and figure out what the stroke is. If you're going to run the biggest bore that will fit in a 500 inch V8, then your stroke will be 3 point something and your bore will be 4.7 something in order to fit the rules. And that wants to come out to 499.9. That's your limitation. So once you get the bore and the stroke figured out, on a Harley, what's the head bolt pattern? What rings can you buy? What cylinders can you get? What sleeves can you put in it? That sets the bore size. Then the stroke will be whatever your engine design is. If you have a 124 rule or a 131 rule or a 135 rule, or whatever sanction body you're running on, or if you're just wanting to go street riding, you need to figure out what's the biggest bore you can get away with without generating too much heat and without messing up your rideability and your drivability based on the gasoline available and what you're going to run for fuel. The bore dictates the valve size. If you have a small bore, you might be able to get 1 or 2 small valves in it. If you have a big bore, you might be able to get big valves in it. I brought these to show you. It's a Milwaukee 8 titanium valve and a Pro Stock 500 intake valve. Here's a Milwaukee 8 4 1/4 bore like everybody's selling now to make 128s, 124s out of your 107s, 114s. So 4.250 bore. Lots of rings available. Lots of head gaskets and base gaskets available. This one right here, this is as big as we could go. This is a 5.145 inches, 140 thou. And the rings were not available, so we had to have rings made. That takes a while to get the rings made. And they want you to buy a bunch of them, but they will make them. Now these rings right here are made for us by Total Seal. And it's Total Seal not because it's gapless. People get that word confused. Gapless and Total Seal. Total Seal makes gapless rings, but the company name, Total Seal, does not mean gapless ring. I don't know if you can see that. This ring here is very high quality, all right? This is a steel top ring. It's got a PVD coating on it that is called C23. I don't know if you can see it. And the old man shaking. This is a second ring. It has a Napier hook on it. I want you to see the hook. Oh man, you can't hardly see it, but there it is. The top ring is exactly the same size. I got mixed up there for a minute. This is the top ring. This is a barrel face, and it is a diamond ground ring to the closest measurements that NASA can measure. I mean, this thing is flat. It's guaranteed within tenths and tenths and tenths. Lots of dots with lots of zeros. This is a steel Napier second ring. It has a little hook on it. It is a taper face, and it's made for scraping oil. It goes in the second groove. Now, I want to show you how good this fits. This is 0.27 wide. We dictate the measurements that the piston's made to based on the ring we can get. There's a lot of options on these rings once you get into this bore size. Okay, let me quit jumping around. I'm going to try and make this easy. The valve size is based on the bore size, like I said. So if you got a big bore, you can put a big valve in it, okay? The valve size limits how much air and fuel will go in the engine, okay? The exhaust valve size limits how much will come out of the engine. So we want the biggest valves we can fit in the biggest bore we can fit. And let me qualify biggest it will fit. Just because it'll fit on the table, or it will fit on the CAD program, or it will fit on the drawing board, is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about where it will run up and down the highway wide open, Bonneville wide open, 500 miles at NASCAR or more, whatever your intended application is, running on the drag strip or going to Sturgis and back, or to Daytona and back. Those will be your limitations that will dictate how much heat you can make, how much heat you can dissipate, and also the gasoline and what kind of pressure you can make. So valve size is based on bore size. Then the piston design is based on what rings are available and also the gaskets and the valve size. So look, when I call up the piston guy and I tell him what to make for us, I'm going to segue for a second. Custom pistons versus shelf stock pistons. You call up, you got a 468 Chevrolet 060 bore overstock, and you call CP, JE, Wiseco, whoever you call, and you order up some 468 pistons, 60 over 454 they have on the shell. They've got rings on the shell, and they'll give you what they've got. And if you ask them, they'll sell you what they think you need. If you assume responsibility for all of this stuff yourself, you're going to have to fill this out. Okay? Bore size, piston size, compression height, effective volume, dome volume, intake pocket diameter, intake pocket depth, exhaust pocket diameter, exhaust pocket depth, top bland thickness, top groove axial height, top groove depth, top bland diameter, top ring groove root diameter, second land thickness, second land groove axial height, second land groove depth, second land diameter, second ring groove root diameter. You got to do the pressure balance groove width. Pressure balance groove goes in between the top and the second ring. I'll tell you about that sometime. Our racing stuff and our street stuff all use pressure balance grooves. Can you see how big this groove is? Top ring, second ring, oil ring. There's a pressure balance groove. They want to know how big that is, and they want to know the width of that and the depth of it. You also got to tell them all the oil rings, width, axial, height, depth, and the root diameter of the oil ring. You got to tell them the skirt profile. This is really cool. The skirt profile and the cam and the barrel shape. This right here, you would think this is just a straight piece of aluminum that's coated. No, no, no. This is shaped like a barrel, and it has a cam shape to it. And that's all made based on the application and a lot of R&D and a lot of research and development to come up with that. You also got to tell them the measure point on the skirt, where you want that measured so they can know how big to make the piston based on the bore size. They don't tell us that. We tell them what we want, and they build it to suit. Then we got to measure the wrist pin diameter, wrist pin length, wrist pin Loctite, the thickness of the crown of the piston, the thickness of the skirts of the piston, and the ring belt thickness on the inside. And we also tell them the pin boss spacing, how much room we have here for the rods, how much side clearance we want for the rod, and for the wrist pin support. If these are far apart, the wrist pin is hanging out between two sides and the wrist pin is bending so bad. And the last things are the piston overall length, the finished weight, and what coatings you want on it. It's 2 pages, y'all. This is 1 page. And I don't want to bore you with all the other little minor differences, but gas ports, spark plug grooves, pocket diameter, pocket depth, dome angle, compression height. We don't just call up and order shelf stock pistons. Even our Milwaukee 8 Thrasher kits have specified pistons based on the rings that we can use and the valves that we have manufactured. Also, the cam design is based on the lift that will fit in the heads and the valve size, of course. And then the intake valve closing number, I wrote it down, it's based on the RPM and the port flow capabilities, okay? The intake valve closing. The exhaust valve opening is based by trial and error or some really high dollar pressure measurement stuff where you can see where the pressure falls in the combustion chamber and the cylinder when the piston's going down. That's when you want to open the exhaust valve as soon as you can before you waste any time, before you lose time with cylinder pressure. But as soon as it's falling, you need to open it because it takes a long time for that exhaust to get out. Look at the piston again. It has big intake, small exhaust. This is coming in with barometer, a barometric pressure, atmosphere pushing the air in the engine, and this one is pushed out by expansion and heat. It takes a lot more, there's a lot more pressure on the exhaust side. Okay, the intake opening is based on the valve size and the piston design. And the exhaust closing on the cam is based on the valve-to-valve clearance in the combustion chamber, clicking clearance. I want to spend just a minute talking about that. One tool we've used for decades is this really cool trot tool. You Hemi guys that race Hemi cars or any other cool Hemi stuff, you guys need this. This is neat because once you get your engine going really fast, you can measure, when you're on TDC, you can measure valve lift at TDC, and you can make that an important number based on your combustion chamber shape and size, and you can make it your valve pockets based off of that. Now, when you get your cam timing right, I do it in order. First, I do intake closing is my most important valve event. My second most important valve event is the exhaust opening. My third most important, or least important, third almost last, is the intake valve opening, and the exhaust valve closing is last. And the reason that is for me is because you only get 4 events on a cam. You get when it opens, when it closes, when it opens, when it closes. And you get how much lift. The lift, we're limited a little bit on lift because if you have a specific number that you need it to open by, and you have a specific number you need it to close by, and your valve isn't big enough, you're going to have to add duration to it. That means the valve's going to need to stay open longer. If your valve stays open longer, you're going to sacrifice piston dome valve pockets. Too much valve pocket. If you look at what's the common denominator with this Pro Stock piston and this street piston, is our valve pockets are not very deep, okay? And we've been working on that for years to get the overlap where both valves are open at the same time. That's where this tool is important, the trot tool, for us to see how far each valve is open. And then when we ask for cam design, it's important to us to set the intake valve lift at TDC and the exhaust valve lift at TDC, and that's controlled by when the intake valve opens and when the exhaust valve closes. That sets that limit right there, that TDC lift. And you don't have to have a lot of that unless your heads don't flow good. This is what we're learning at a really fast rate. I mean, we started here and we're going here, and if you'll look at the shape of the rate of learning, I don't see it falling over. People say, well, you've already picked out, you've already made all the power you're going to make. The Pro Stock's topped out, the street bike Harleys, the twin cams, the Evos, the Sportsters are all topped out. Small block Chevys, big block Chevys, Fords, Chrysler. No, they're not. We're just now figuring it out, you guys. And we have math. There's a lot of math right here. Everything has a formula. We've done so many of these projects and so many over 40 years, all these different engines, that we have come up with some ideas to start with, but then you want to make it more efficient and you want better. You want the compression ratio as high as you can get it, not to detonate. You want the gasoline and the fuel to be as good a good octane retardant as it can, and where the intake valve closes is going to set that pressure as well. One more thing. The last thing when we design the engine, and we get the bore, we get the stroke, we get the valve size, we get the valve-to-valve clearance, the cam timing, we get all that set. The last thing, sir, I am doing Tech Talk Live. Please call back another time. Anyway, back to the story. One thing that we figured out is we're going to need less overlap, the better the heads flow. We're going to need less cam timing, the better the heads flow. Back in the old days when you couldn't get good heads and you could only get, you remember back, no you don't. Let me tell you, I see some guys on here old as me, and they know we used to have little teeny bores and big stroke. That's the only way we could add cubic inches. And it was because of where the head bolts were. The head bolts limited us. So when Truett and Osborne and some of those guys from S&S and some of the guys way back when, I don't even know the names of some of those real pioneers back there, but they made, the only way they could add cubic inches was to do it with stroke. So stroke became a trend that was believed to be a V-twin thing. You need a lot of stroke because it makes low end power. Well, this right here, y'all, this big monster is 5.1 bore and a 3.8 stroke. This makes more torque per cubic inch than the little bore big stroke engine. It just does. It makes more torque per cubic inch. So we make a lot of torque with big bore, and we make a lot of torque with big valves. We make a lot of torque with big ports, but we do it with cam timing, because the better the cams, better the heads flow, the less time you have to waste having the valve open a long way, stay open a long time, close late, therefore making big deep valve pockets which ruin your compression ratio. You see this piston, how flat this is? This makes 15-to-1 compression ratio. 15-to-1. This Milwaukee 8 right here with a 90 cc chamber. This is only a plus 10 right here. You can get 12-to-1 out of this with a 90 cc chamber. I don't want that for a street bike, but you can get it. When you get the flow good, you don't have to put a lot of cam timing in it. So going back to the old days, you can see that people bring their engines here and they have 280 on the intake and 300 duration on the exhaust. And now these guys right here, those Milwaukee 8s, we're running 240 on the intake, we're running 260 on the exhaust. It's not because they want something different, it's because the head flows so much. So it's got 2 intake valves, it's got 2 exhaust valves. So we're getting more air in less time. More air in less time. More exhaust comes out in less time, more intake and fuel comes in less time. And what I mean by less time, less valve time. When you open a valve, full lift, and you keep it out there for a long time and you slowly close it late, that's a lot of duration, and you're doing that because you can't get enough air in the engine to suit what you're looking for a goal. That's just my opinion now. That's just my opinion. I wanted to tell you a couple other little things that before we run out of time that I made a note on. I wrote down that I wanted to tell you about a couple things. Oh, this is interesting. Here's a Pro Stock 500 valve spring, okay? 400, 500 pounds on the seat, really big, triple spring. Intake valve, we lift this 1 inch 200. Doesn't weigh much, 90 something grams. It's really light. It's got a hollow stem, CRN coated titanium. The little Milwaukee 8, it's a very light valve, but there's 2 intakes, so it makes a lot of flow, a lot of area, and you don't need much cam timing to do it. But I wanted to show you the differences in the springs. Here's the Milwaukee 8 valve spring. This goes in 90 to 100 on the seat, all the way to handle 600 lift. This Pro Stock spring goes in 400 to 500 on a seat, depending on install height, and it has over 1,000 pounds open pressure. And these cost a lot. These are made by the same company. Spring Company makes both of these to spec. But they want you to tell them what to make. The valve guys want you to tell them what to make. The piston guys want you to tell them what to make. The head gasket guy, the gasket guys want to tell them what you... If you call them up and say, send me your Milwaukee 8 this, they will send you what they got. That's great. Look out on the internet today on the road and at the beach and on the rallies and see how many shelf stock kits are out there. Harley Davidson sells stage 3, 4, 5s now. Those are cookie cutter bolt together engine packages. Everything's worked out. All the hard stuff, all these sheets and formulas and what will fit and what won't fit are all worked out. So when you buy the kit, it comes in, you look at the instruction manual and it says torque it to this, fit this, do this, do this. And that is a great deal, and it makes a lot of power per cubic inch. But if you're looking for the all you can get, and think, what would it be, what would all of this be worth if we didn't learn something from it? And some of my local competition that has really nice Harley shops that sell the stage 3, 4, 5s, need them. I need y'all to build some nice Harleys and sell them to my customers so we can build these things to run good and have fun, more smiles a gallon. But I wanted to tell you that I've heard that the Harley shop says, you can take it to George, he'll build you a racing engine. George's been racing his whole life. He'll help you make more power, and that thing will be perfect for the drag strip, and I don't know if anybody outrun you. But it's not for what you want. It is for racing. If you want to go racing, go see this guy. If you want to go to Sturgis, stay at this shop. That's what they say. I hear them, I see them. I can even put on my nose and glasses and put on a Harley shirt and go in and ask. I'll wear my Harley hat and I'll wear my sunglasses, and they don't know who I am. But they'll tell you, Star Racing does a great job. Who could argue with their reputation? Who could argue with their experience? But they sell racing engines. But what I wanted to share is we learned a lot about our racing engines. We learned how to trap air and fuel. We learned how to move the power curves where we want them in the RPM. We learned how to make more, less, more to the left of the dyno sheet, more right of the dyno sheet. We learned how to make that work with all of this racing stuff. We learned how to seal up the cylinders. We learned how to make the heads flow a lot. We learned how to run small cams. We learned how to run big valves and small cams so that you get the torque that you want in the riding ranges that you ride. It's all part of the combination, and I wasn't trying to make it any harder than it is, because there's 40 years we've already spent learning that stuff. So when you look up on the internet at starracing.com, we have Thrasher kits. We have the Thrasher 2, 3, 4 for the Milwaukee 8. Then we also have our racing engines that we're working on now, where we make 140 something cubic inches out of the Milwaukee 8. We make 145 cubic inches out of the twin cams, and we can make 200 horsepower. But there's several things. The bigger they are, the hotter they run. The bigger they are, the more octane they need in the fuel. And you just can't cool a big engine. I'm sorry. You got to have water, got to have a radiator, or you got to have big fans. So guys say, I don't care about that. I want the most powerful engine I can get. Well, you're going to be, maybe you'll be happy, but if you go to Daytona and get stuck in the traffic, or you go to Sturgis and run up and down Main Street, or whatever that street is there, where everybody's there 6 wide and everybody's idling, they're just melting, man, melting. Larry Westerfield, aka Iron Man, just popped in and said you could tell about Bagzilla how much we learned. Bagzilla was a great example of taking what we learned from Pro Stock and NHRA engine racing development and all the projects we've done through NASCAR and several other racing organizations in our career. We learned a lot about how to make it a street version. And I'm going to have a swallow of water. Speaking of cooling and water, there it goes, right, that plan right there. Hey, Tony, Larry, Alex, thank you all so much for watching. Steve Johnson races Pro Stock Motorcycle, lives over in Birmingham, has been a friend of mine for 30 years. His crew chief guy, Jock Irvin, got the coronavirus, and his family has it too, and Jock's in the hospital on a ventilator. They're hoping to intubate him this week, where they can get ventilator out of him. He's going to have unbelievable medical bills. He just started finishing up a house. His family's, they're all struggling, y'all. And I'm going to say everybody's fighting battles. Everybody's got problems. But Jock, J-O-C-K, Jock, I think that's his middle name. I think it's Erwin Jock Allen. Steve and the family put together a GoFundMe page. If you go on GoFundMe, you can type in Jock Allen or Erwin Jock Allen, I believe, and it tells you where to go. But any money you guys can send him, if you can't send him any money, please send him and his family some prayers. Steve is a one-man show right now. Jock was very, very important for him, and I get to talk to him every now and then. And you guys see him. He has a lot of followers. Steve Johnson's an old guy. He's 59 years old. He's racing pro stock motorcycle. And him and Jock went out there for 10 years together. Jock's the guy with the dreads that helps Steve. You see him on TV all the time. He's a great dude, y'all. And please go look at the GoFundMe website and look up Erwin Jock Allen. I don't know how to really put up the link, but if you'll look, send him $5, $10, $50. Some people send a lot of money. Some people send a prayer. And I'm gonna tell you something right now, man. 100 prayers would probably be worth $100. So I have plenty of people watching, and I see you guys are good folks. We are good folks. It's a God-fearing country, and we are thankful for our opportunities. And Jock is struggling. His mama died last week from it. The rest of his family, several of the family members have it. It's getting passed around over there. You got to be careful. And I know that I'm looking on the screen and I see people that don't know anybody that has the virus. And people die from stuff every day, every year. I know the regular flu, car wrecks, self-inflicted wounds. I know that. That's all true, y'all. But listen, this is real over here. There's a lot of people here dying too. And maybe they would die from something else if it wasn't for this. But this is a true story. Jock needs our help, us gearheads and the people that love motorcycle drag racing. And I am so thankful for you guys tuning in and watching. I see my time is up. I enjoy this so much. I think this is number 43. Please, again, do not become offended by my information because it is an opinion. It is not something directed at you if you believe different than me, okay? Just like political and religious stuff. Everybody has their own beliefs. And I don't care. I mean, I care what you believe and what you feel, but I'm not going to shove what I think and feel on you, okay? God bless y'all. I'm thankful. I love y'all. Have a great week. Tune in. Oh, please send me a note. Send me a private message. Send me a message, an email, george@starracing.com, and tell me what you'd like to know more about. Thank you, Mary Allison, JR, Kurt, Wade. Thank y'all. I love y'all. May God bless.